Welcome, I'm Sherif El-Sirfy. 4 scenes shook the Middle East, occurring in about 10 days. The opening of the Octagon building, which Israel views in its media as directed against them. That's how they see it, even though in reality, we might be monitoring Israel and so on. But this is an Egyptian state building that maintains border security, whether with Libya, our borders with Israel, or Sudan. It's a command and control building, but one way or another, they see this building as directed against them. The second scene is Turkey suddenly deciding to sell the S-400 air defense system that Turkish President Erdogan had bought from Russia. This is a huge shock because it's one of the most powerful air defense systems in the world, capable of shooting down the stealth F-35. The third scene is the attendance of Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa at the NATO Summit in Ankara, the capital of Turkey. Trump was sitting in one of the conferences with Ahmed al-Sharaa beside him. So Trump told you the Golan is Israeli and forget dreams of the Golan returning to Syria. All this while Ahmed al-Sharaa sat next to Trump, and Ahmed al-Sharaa remained silent. To understand why the Syrian people are stunned, it's because when Ahmed al-Sharaa started his revolution against Bashar al-Assad in 2011, his slogan was, "Finish in Damascus, then head to Tel Aviv." So today, al-Sharaa stands silent in the presence of Trump, who says the Golan is Syrian. The fourth scene was the NATO Summit itself. This summit was in the Ottoman-Style, which used to grant Turkey immense influence over Middle Eastern countries and Europe. The entire Guard of Honor was Ottoman, wearing Ottoman uniforms. But the scene that was trending all over Europe was the gifts Erdogan gave to the NATO leaders. Pistols from Turkey engraved with Erdogan's name. Why would Erdogan do that? Follow me so I can tell you the summary of the news story. First, you must know that Turkey hosted the NATO Summit. Trump, as I told you, attended. The Syrian president attended. He was a guest on the sidelines of the summit. The one who didn't attend was Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. But this man sent reports to Trump and told him, by the way, Turkey is not America's most loyal ally, and you Americans must review the Egyptian-Turkish military maneuvers and see the level of intelligence and military cooperation between Egypt and Turkey. Now, a very important question. Why didn't Netanyahu attend? The answer? Because of the Turkish-Israeli conflict over influence in Syria. The Times of Israel says that Trump met Ahmed al-Sharaa on the sidelines of the summit and promised to remove Syria from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. And this is a very important moment because it grants a new American legitimacy to the new Syria. At the same time, this legitimacy, al-Sharaa is obtaining it from Turkish soil, not Washington or Tel Aviv. So it seems that al-Sharaa has conceded the Golan Heights. No one knows. This is just what's being said. Because when Trump says, while you're sitting next to him, that the Golan is Israeli and you stay silent, people start to interpret this. The Golan was sold out. Here, the American website Axios says that Netanyahu called Trump before the summit and told him, by the way, you must restrain Erdogan, put pressure on him, and don't you dare sell him advanced weapon systems, especially the stealth F-35. Not only that, don't sell fighter jet engines to Turkey, the plane's engine that is. Why, Sherif? The Wall Street Journal said that Turkey wants the F-35, but a penalty was expected in 2022 from the US Congress, preventing Turkey's return to the F-35 stealth fighter program. What was the reason? That the Turkish President Erdogan bought the S-400 air defense system from Russia. So the Americans said, you're bringing a Russian system to operate with an American plane designed to be stealthy against that very Russian system. Get out of the F-35 fighter program. Well, the surprise that happened, according to the Turkish newspaper Hürriyet, Turkey has agreed to sell the S-400 air defense systems to a Gulf state. Of course, I don't need to tell you that this Gulf state will take the S-400, dismantle it, crack its code, find its weaknesses, and send them to America. I don't need to tell you. The Russians will go crazy. So why would Erdogan sell one of the most powerful air defense systems in the world? First, some believe that the buyer is Qatar, while others say the Emirates are the ones who will buy the S-400. Well, Turkey's goal isn't just to get the American stealth F-35. What do you think of that? No, actually, it is seeking to obtain the F-110 engine, which is needed to produce the Turkish national fighter jet KAAN. This is a plane Turkey dreams of manufacturing to have a stealth aircraft, just as they did with the Bayraktar drones, which are among the most powerful in the world. Reuters said that America has already notified Congress in 2026 that Trump intends to sell Turkey dozens of F-110 engines in a deal worth approximately $700 million. There were lawmakers in the US Congress saying, no, the man has the S-400. Give us the S-400 and we'll give them the engines. Of course, it's in America's interest to take the S-400, dismantle it, crack its code, break its programming, and literally penetrate Russian military technology. Literally, Erdogan is selling out Russian President Putin. Mind you, Turkey's KAAN fighter jet, this one is 5th generation. Turkey wants to be part of the global club that manufactures fighter jets. Because who actually makes these jets? You can count them on one hand. America, China, Russia, France, maybe a few others, and that's it. So why does Israel consider this news a geopolitical earthquake? Because Israel bases its campaign against Turkish ambition in America on two things. First, how can you give F-35s to Turkey when they have the S-400 and Turkey isn't a reliable ally? Here, Israel lost its legal argument. Turkey is selling the S-400. Then there's the political argument that Turkey is a threat to regional balance and that Israel is a stronger, more vital ally to America than Turkey. The Jerusalem Post and Times of Israel reported that Netanyahu said it clearly in a meeting with Trump and US military officers, don't give Turkey F-35s and don't sell them the engines because that would tip the balance of power in the Middle East. He told them, by the way, Erdogan is the godfather of political Islamist groups that are hostile to America. Then, at the end of the NATO summit, Erdogan made a very clever move to tell Trump, no, Turkey is important. Maybe even the most important country in NATO. Erdogan gifted NATO leaders weapons with ammunition, pistols, and about 5 or 6 bullets. But several European leaders, the heads of Europe, couldn't even bring them into their own countries because of the laws. Now, look at the brilliance. Erdogan's message to Trump was, if some European leaders can't even bring a single firearm into their countries, then what will they do in a time of war? It's a move that seems theatrical, but it exposed a psychological rift within NATO right in front of Trump. Mind you, Trump has often criticized NATO regarding the war in Ukraine. You're not supporting Ukraine. You're afraid to face Russia, and so on. NATO talks about war, deterrence, Russia, Iran, and China. And after all that, you can't even bring in a pistol and 6 bullets, and you're the leader of a European nation. That was the message Erdogan sent to Trump. These people are flustered by a handgun in a wooden box. So how will they act if a full-scale war breaks out? And that's why Erdogan is telling America what? Mind you, Turkey has the largest army in NATO. Don't you dare underestimate us. Give us the F-35. Give me the F-110 engines. So where does Egypt fit into all of this? Egypt and Turkey were on the verge of entering a military clash in Libya. Egypt was supporting Haftar, the commander of the Libyan National Army. Turkey was supporting the Tripoli government. And these two were fighting each other. Today, agreements are being made between Egypt and Turkey to unify Libya. And the head of the Egyptian General Intelligence Service, Major General Hassan Rashad, met his Turkish counterpart. Also, the Egyptian military spokesperson spoke about air and land maneuvers and thunderbolt forces between the two countries. Where were we and where are we now? We were fighting each other and threatening each other. Today there is a clear Egyptian-Turkish alliance. Also, Lieutenant General Ashraf Salem Zaher, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and Minister of Defense and Military Production, witnessed the final stage of the night missile firing for the air defense forces. Egypt isn't saying, I'm going to hit Israel with missiles, but it's saying, I have missiles capable of hitting Tel Aviv. Therefore, Egypt in this whole story is not a side detail. Egypt is the factor that turns the Turkish rapprochement from a mere maneuver into a new regional equation. Turkey alone is a major power. I'm not underestimating it, but Egypt is a major power as well. So when Egypt and Turkey are together, this is where Netanyahu gets worried. Is this just temporary coordination or the start of a new axis surrounding Israel from the Sinai side by the Egyptian army and surrounding Israel from the Syrian side? The Turkish army. Ishaq al-Awsat newspaper quoted analysts saying that Israeli concern is due to the very heavy military weight of these two countries and that this cooperation is moving from mere maneuvers and agreements to defense manufacturing and integration. Retired Israeli General Yitzhak Brik, according to a Sharq al-Awsat newspaper, said this cooperation is very dangerous and forces Israel to review its military doctrine and limits the Israeli deterrence capability. As for the Israeli Yedioth Aronot, it said the Golden Eagle exercise is not a routine training. No, it's training for paratroopers, Thunderbolt and special forces, and there was aviation before that. So the goal is that the Turkish army might be training to support the Egyptian army, perhaps in air and land battles in the event of an Egyptian-Israeli war, and vice versa. Egypt would help Turkey. So these maneuvers create a future capacity for military cooperation if a major crisis occurs. It's not a war plan against Israel, but you are building a language of joint operations between the two armies. In general, Turkey isn't saying it will fight Israel, nor is Egypt saying it will fight Israel. But no, you are preparing yourself for that day. The Israelis see it that way. The bottom line, my fellow viewer, the Middle East is changing very slowly with revealing moments. Erdogan sold the S-400 to buy engines for the Turkish stealth fighter. Ahmed al-Sharaa might give up the Golan Heights in exchange for lifting sanctions, becoming a stronger, larger state, and building an army. Netanyahu is trying to apply pressure from afar. The message here isn't that war will break out tomorrow morning. No, Israel is no longer alone at the center of the map. Turkey is building up its military capabilities. Egypt is conducting missile maneuvers. The new Syria is waiting for American sanctions to be lifted. Consequently, Egypt, Turkey, and Syria are telling America, don't bet everything on your Israeli ally. No, there are other powers in the region. Are we looking at an official Egyptian-Turkish alliance? To be honest, no. But we're seeing a shared military and political language between Cairo and Ankara. And that's what's worrying Tel Aviv. Because Egypt doesn't just make empty threats. Egypt conducts maneuvers. Turkey doesn't act on emotion. No, it focuses on armament and technological development and so on. So when these calculations from an Israeli perspective bring Cairo and Ankara together, well, then the Middle East is entering a new equation. An equation that Israel won't be able to ignore easily. I'm Sherif El-Sirfy. We've deconstructed the secrets of this news. We've told its story. What will happen in the future? We're just waiting. And we'll see what the coming days have in store for us. May your glory endure, my homeland. That's it. We've reached the end of the episode. And that's the heart of the story. See you soon.
And we are not ones for mourning.
We are the fire beneath the ashes.
We are the rock that cannot be broken. And every blow only increases our resolve.
We'd let 2 million perish
before this country ever bows down.